We're talking about the ACC possibly stealing teams from the Big 12.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
There's a new, I don't know if I call this a rumor or more of a theory as to why and how ESPN would actually steer teams from the expansion Big 12 over to the ACC. So let's break down some of the nitty-gritty on this. And by the way, I share the annoyance that Drake had with this, that why are we allowing people on the X app to write novels? Like this is not a tweet. This is a full-on blog that this person wrote. Why ESPN will move Big 12 schools to the ACC. He says ESPN wants more profit and less cost. Then how could it make more money with respect to the ACC than the Big 12? Contrary to what many people think, the simplest solution would be to move some of the Big 12 schools to the ACC. Why is that? He says the answer, by the way, this is from ex-user Old Gray Dog, which in itself makes me laugh. He says the ACC is expected to make more money than the Big 12 for the Big 12's next cycle by $5 to $10 million per year. But note that the ACC has two separate deals with ESPN. The base contract and the ACC network contract. The base contract with ESPN gives the ACC only the low 20s in 2023. Each ACC school received another $11 million from the ACC network profit sharing. In other words, ESPN gives less money to the ACC than to the Big 12 if we only look at the base contract. The ACC money is subscription-based and is shared between ESPN and the ACC. Thus, more people subscribe to the ACC network, the more profit ESPN and the ACC would share. On top of that, cable companies are also required to pay higher in-network carriage fees for states where the ACC schools are located. Thus, if ESPN moves the Big 12 schools to the ACC, ESPN would pay less base contract pay and receive more ACC network profit. He talks about Utah and Arizona State as teams that come to mind. First of all, Kenton, I know this guy has numbers to back up his claims. The whole thing seems a little absurd on the surface, plus the fact a lot of people out there assume that ESPN and Fox just have the Power Four conferences on puppet strings. I feel like that gets overstated a lot.
Yeah, they're imagining Disney to be a combination of Vought International, of Global Corp, of Global. They're imagining that they're this mystery conglomerate. What was the company in Fallout? Do you remember the company in Fallout that was pulling the strings?
What is that? A video game? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Never mind. You're a little too old. Vault Tech. That was the name. Vault Tech was the name of the company.
Okay.
They're imagining that there are all of these companies at once, and they simply are not. Don't get me wrong. Disney is massively powerful. They do have a ton of money. That is not to be understated in all of this. But I think that we're creating a situation where we are imagining Disney as being so powerful, they can move institutions from one conference to the other with a snap of their fingers, which is not necessarily the case. It's not the way it sits right now. And this is why I think it's so interesting that now people are finally looking at sources and saying, wait a minute, is this source legitimate? Because where were these same people vetting at when there were all of these rampant rumors about the ACC breaking apart and all these teams leaving left and right and all that? Nobody was vetting sources then. When there were rumors that, oh yeah, Florida State and Clemson have played their last game in the ACC, not a single damn soul did an ounce of vetting. Now, all of a sudden, we're paying attention. But you know what? If this is the moment that gets us to pay attention to where we're getting our information from, good. Because I don't believe that the ACC is taking Big 12 teams. Really, with Utah and Arizona State, they are Pac-12 to Big 12, but you get my point.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're going to take those teams because Utah just signed into that contract. Utah cannot, hey, I don't like this contract, I'm leaving. As we're seeing right now with Florida State and Clemson, you cannot do that with a contract that just because you don't like it. You have signed that contract. You have to sit in that for a while. You have to do whatever you got to do, pay whatever the exit fee is. But that's just the reality of what we're looking at here. And moreover than anything else, yes, the numbers make sense, but there are things outside of numbers sometimes. When you break down the raw numbers of who makes more, and this would be a very simple. It's like saying, oh yeah, Dono, you save a ton of money if you just didn't take care of your kid anymore. Well, hypothetically, yes. Yeah, yes.
If I don't feed him, if I just send him out to panhandle for food, that I can save
Yeah,
money.
yeah. Listen, all you got to do is go behind the cookout, and they throwing out food every night at about 3:50 a.m. You know, just send them out there. They'll feel bad for them. Tell them to do the big eyes. They'll get free food for everybody. But you get the point. There are practical things that do not always align with theory, and this is one of those moments.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like ESPN obviously has a lot of leverage when it comes to the ACC and the Big 12 being the biggest and most important TV partner, but people just assume the conferences have no autonomy whatsoever, that like, they have their own contracts and agreements and relationships with their members. Now, I guess like if you really want to dig deep into the conspiracy, ESPN can always threaten, hey, we have that look-in provision coming up. If you got, which is actually with the ACC, so that's leverage. I think the ESPN has more leverage over the ACC than they do with the Big 12. But I guess you could say we're not going to renew this deal, or we're not going to extend it if you don't do what we say. So obviously, there's a certain amount of leverage and power that the TV networks have, but people assume that the conferences have no autonomy whatsoever. Like I got to tell you, if it was all about the TV networks, then Fox would have already snatched up Clemson and FSU. It may happen eventually when they get to the Big Ten, but it certainly hasn't happened yet. But I think my message here is, Kenton, that people have to do a better job, maybe us included, in filtering out the noise from the actual reputable conference realignment reports. Let's try to filter out the reports a little bit better from the rumors, because, and I enjoyed this theory. I enjoy the theory that, yeah, cost-effective ESPN could probably do themselves a financial favor if they were to turn these two conferences upside down. I just don't know if they actually have the literal power to do so. Now, do. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say the only thing that I agree with out of this article is the ACC stands to make more than, or to give ESPN more than the Big 12 for getting a lesser payout. So that's why I keep trying to tell everybody, this world that you're imagining where ESPN doesn't renew the ACC's contract, it's delusion. It's delusion. Come back to planet Earth, because that is the one thing that this tweet got right that I've been saying for forever. The ACC gives ESPN a great deal. They're not going to lose themselves out of a great deal to where now Fox can go get that great deal because, well, we just don't think you guys are worth it without Clemson and Florida State. Right. That's not how this thing works.